Black coming to you live. Yes, live from Black Pearl Studios. How y'all doing? Everybody doing all right? You know I'm feeling good because I just came back from victory. I was out in D.C. kicking it with LGBTQ plus elected officials from all over the country. Y'all, sometimes when I go, everybody asks me, why do you love that conference so much? Why does it motivate you? Listen, after fighting in some of the places in Indiana that I have to fight, it is nice to go someplace and be reaffirmed, and everybody is just happy. They call it gay for a reason. They call it gay for a reason. Listen, I met some amazing people from South Africa who are doing positive things for women down there, making sure lesbians are taken care of. I met more elected judges this year, and that was a huge topic of conversation, is how we have, as Democrats, messed up and lost our courts. We did not pay attention to our courts in 2016. We got caught up in personalities and the lesser of two evils. And because we didn't pay attention, Mitch McConnell and the orange dude has completely run roughshod over our court system. So listen, y'all, don't trip this year. 2020 is way too important. Yes, I said it. I'm talking about 2020 now. 2020 is way too important for us to sleep, not just about who's going to be in the White House, who's going to be in our governorship, but who we're also putting in those judgeships. They are selecting folks to be judges across the country where the Bar Association is saying, yeah, no, we don't even know how he got a law degree. You know, it's that bad. It is really that bad. These are the appointees who get lifetime appointments. Think about that, y'all. So as y'all are enjoying the presidential candidates and all the conversations about who's the best, remember, it doesn't matter come November, I'm voting blue no matter who. I'm voting blue no matter who. So I hope y'all didn't miss me too much last week, but I'm back. Then I'll be off next week because it's Thanksgiving. We're going to eat turkey. All right, a couple things I want to rant about. Can I get a big old Yahoo cheerleader scream? Because Brian Bosma is finally, after 34 years, leaving our Indiana State House. Yay! Listen, I'm not getting ready to sing a sad song about that guy leaving. I'm not upset about it at all. Don't you know he was just bragging the other day about how he helped move pro-choice for schools? Teachers, what were you marching about yesterday? That's a Brian Bosma thing. Brian Bosma, the instrumental in making sure RFRA got signed and got to Mike Pence's desk. Yeah, I'm not gonna miss this dude. I'm really, really glad he's going bye-bye. I don't even want to send him any flowers. I will be respectful because he is a human. But that's all he gets. I'm sorry, his policies have hurt our state. We are now 48th in the nation in quality of life. He's had a supermajority, and he's had an ample opportunity to fix these things, and he didn't. He made sure his boys were all taken care of. All of his business boys were taken care of. His pockets were lined. But the rest of us Hoosiers, we're still struggling. Our wages are stagnant. You can't collective bargaining. Right to work state. Repeal of the construction wage law. All of these things under his watch, under his tenure. So I'm sorry. I know that there's some folks on the other side that'll be sad to see him go. I ain't one of them. I ain't upset about it at all. In fact, I also wonder if he did not see the writing on the wall, because we talked about it. We talked about it 2 weeks ago when I had Kate and I had Ashley on here. In the city county council races, we flipped every one of his Marion County seats and one of his Fisher seats. So maybe he saw the writing on the wall, and that district is turning a whole lot bluer than he thought it was going to be, and he didn't want no parts of that, because, you know, some people don't want to compete and actually have to lose. You know, they don't understand that you can't win everything all the time. But he's going bye-bye. Bye-bye. I ain't mad. So I heard Mike McClellan is running his spot. Yep, I said it. I heard he's running his spot. I don't know if it's true or not. But we'll find somebody to run up there, and we'll make sure that is a good candidate to take on whatever Republican who decides. It's an open seat, y'all. We need that seat in 88, just like we need at least 15 more. That's just one of a whole bunch we need, but we definitely need that one. Also on Tuesday, the teachers walked out, and you guys had your amazing rally. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I work for the Surveyor, and when Deborah Jenkins says I need to be at work, I need to be at work. It pays my bills. But listen, teachers, I want to holler at you about something for just a minute. You know I have been for you and about you. I understand the importance of public education and making sure that we fund public education at the right way, at the right level. I don't think that we can improve our schools by creating a separate school system on the voucher program or charter schools or all of that. I want to see all of those public dollars go to public schools. and helping every student, every child in the state of Indiana have an opportunity to grow. But there are people on the other side who don't want that. They want to essentially privatize public education and make it difficult for your children to get an education. And they want that education, the quality of that education, to be dependent upon how much money the parent makes. This is what's happening, y'all. And as teachers, I need to ask you, now, you see what happens when you vote against your interests. Because not every teacher in the state of Indiana is a Democrat, nor do they have to be. I'm not suggesting they do. However, if you're looking at policies and you're looking at the policies that impact you personally, how on earth are you voting for people who are voting against your interests? You are the mind molders of our state. You take the clay and you mold it into something fantastic. And if you are voting against your interests, how can I go out here to these other places in rural America, in rural Indiana, and talk about who we are as Democrats and get them to stop voting against their interests? See, I need y'all to think about this. Think about the policies. Think about the policies in which side, who is bringing you the policies that are going to impact your life. All right? So that's my rant for today. Listen, I'm not going to spend too much time gaggling because I got somebody, you know, Indiana's own Dana Black, turned left. We're going to bring the big guns. Yes. We are going to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to meet people who are running at every level of our state government. Every level. First up, the first individual to declare his candidacy for governor for the great state of Indiana, Dr. Woodrow Myers. Sir, welcome to Turn Left.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Hey, I'm excited about having you here because I read your bio. I know how fantastic you are, but I want the folks to hear how wonderful you are. So tell the people where you're from, where you're from, and what you're working on.
I'm from right here in the great city of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
I was born in Coleman Hospital for Women. Doesn't exist anymore. It was next door to the whole Wishart complex. Now it's a nursing dormitory, but it was a hospital established a long time ago for women. And that's where my mom decided that she wanted to have me, and that's when I came out.
That's what's up. You are a native Hoosier. I love it.
Third generation Hoosier.
Okay, that's what's up.
Third generation. My mother's people came in from North Carolina. My dad's folks came up from Kentucky. And we've been doing a little genealogy, now that you have Ancestry.com.
Okay, y'all bold. I can't do it.
Well, no, you gotta look. You gotta learn. Because if we don't do it
might turn up something I don't want to see.
Well, if we don't do it in our generation, how the kids and the grandkids gonna know?
You're right.
So we've been doing, and my cousins have doing a lot more than we're sharing all the information. My uncle found something that was very, very interesting that I'll share with your listeners and your viewers. He found the receipt for when my great-great-grandmother had my great-great-grandfather purchased.
Whoa.
He was a slave in North Carolina.
Wow.
And she had a Quaker purchase with her money, my great-great-grandfather, before they came to Indiana. And we found what we think is the receipt.
Wow.
For that purchase. Can you imagine that?
Wow. No, I can't. That needs to go into the African American Museum. Make a copy of it. You keep the original.
I don't have the original, of course, but it, Ancestry.com has found a lot of records that nobody thought existed. And I have no idea how they did this, but my uncle found it. He sent it to us, and
that's what's
we're just
up.
Looking at it and say, "Wow!"
Because we are deep. We're deep. We have a long history in this country. Now, a lot of people don't realize that. They think that we just showed up in the 1800s and started picking cotton and tobacco and in the rice fields. No, we've been here a long time. Been here a long time. So I read that your mother was a teacher?
Yes, my mom was a school teacher. My mom and dad met at Indiana State Teachers College, which became Indiana State University in Terre Haute.
Okay.
And they got married and moved to Indianapolis, and she started. I believe her first school was School 63 or School 4. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But she worked as a teacher for a while. I think she did mostly 8th grade.
Okay.
Then
They're trying here.
She
was a special woman. Because them 8th graders. Them 12 years old, yeah, man.
They were something, I'm sure. But then she moved into more administrative. She was assistant principal, I think at School 42. Then she became a principal. Then she did something very important, very stressful, and very interesting after that, Dana. people will remember, the older folk will remember that back in the 70s, there was a federal judge named Hugh Dillon.
Okay.
Hugh Dillon declared that the Indianapolis public schools were racially segregated, and he ordered busing. It was one of the states across the nation that was a federal order for busing.
Okay.
And in order to accomplish busing, you have to have somebody who knows something about schools.
Okay.
My mom was tapped to manage for the judge
Wow.
all of the busing changes and schedules and arrangements so that he could achieve implementation of his order.
Wow.
So although she officially worked for IPS, she was delegated to Judge Hugh Dillon.
That's pretty hot.
And these are the days that you got to remember. These are the days when everybody who wanted your phone number could have it. There was no iPhone. There was no Android. There was no keep my number private or unknown number or anything like that. You want to know the Myers phone number? Here it is.
And they didn't mind giving it to you either. They did. But it wasn't on your hip either. You know, you can leave the phone.
You could leave, but you were when you got it home and the phone rang, you answered it.
Yeah.
Half the people.
No machines either.
No answering machines, none at all. Half the people that found my our number would say, I absolutely, positively forbid you to move my child or bus my child from school X to school Y.
Wow.
The other half would say, you absolutely, positively have to get my kid out. And so it was like, can you imagine the stress on a person for doing that?
But she handled it though, right?
She did handle it.
She handled it like a champ.
She did handle it. But that was my introduction, one of my introductions to.
And I imagine with her being an educator, that had a huge impact on how you viewed education as a young person. Because I know as kids, we get a little lazy sometimes, but you were not that kind of individual, not graduating as young as you did from high school and Stanford.
I wanted to.
I did my homework, yes I did.
I wanted to learn things.
Right.
And I was curious, and I was fortunate that I was given opportunities to go to classes that in those days were designated as accelerated classes.
Okay.
That would be very challenging. And so we did things that were unusual, and I think they should be in every class, but we had to stand up and give oral reports.
Okay.
So we had to pick a subject, and this is the days before PowerPoint. You had to do your own illustrations. So I remember I did a report on sharks. I did a report on the human heart. I did a report on the United States Marine Corps. Okay. And I remember these subjects to today.
Yeah, because they were impactful to you.
Because they were very impactful. And it got me used at a very early age to standing up in front of an audience, connecting with that audience, and communicating information.
Now, see, you should just have my grandmother, because she had us out at 5 years old on Easter Sunday doing Easter pieces. Then you'd have been fine at public speaking. I'm telling you, I've been 5 years old. That's where she had me, out there 5 years old. So when you knew that you were going to graduate high school early, were you nervous about going to college at such a young age?
I didn't think I was graduating early.
Okay.
I just thinking I was graduating.
Graduating.
There was a social difference, a social issue, because I was 3 years younger than everybody else, and so the hormonal issues of teenagedom were part of that scene, right? And so people were like a little bit more advanced than I was, and I wasn't quite in sync with everybody else, and so it was challenging socially. But I had a great group of friends, and I was at Shortridge.
Okay.
And in those days, Shortridge was in a lot of turmoil as well, because the neighborhood was evolving, changing. Shortridge had this academic tradition and history, and so they had 2 tracks of classes. So even though the school was probably about 60% African American, most of the classes that I was in, I was the 1 or 2 or 3 of the kids that were, because they had these 2 different tracks. And
I know where you were going, and that means that you were only one of two or three blacks in your class, right? That's what you're saying.
In the classroom.
In the classroom.
But you walk out of the classroom.
And then you see your folks. So my family all went to Shortridge, the Stones. You know how we do. We connect the dots. Yeah, my Stones. So you decide, you go to, how many colleges had you been accepted to?
I think I got into 5.
Wow.
And
why Stanford?
Because it was the furthest school away from Indianapolis, Indiana. I could not. Look, I wanted to get out of. I needed to see something
else.
different. I mean, Indianapolis was a very challenging place to grow up. I mean, there are a lot of good things about Indianapolis, but there were some challenges as well. I was one of those folks that Steak and Shake did not want in there in the store. I remember that very, very clearly, not being welcomed. I remember G.C. Murphy, which was a five and dime store.
Yeah, I remember.
I walked in, my mom had asked me to buy something and gave me her Visa to do it. They accused me of stealing the Visa, and they cut it in half with this giant pair of scissors in front of my eyes as if that's going to punish me. And then they got her on the phone and said, "Yeah, it's my Visa." And he asked, and they didn't even apologize.
Shopping while black, even when Dr. Goody was young.
I mean, these are the things that, a lot of people, they're a little more than microaggressions.
Yeah.
Not as bad as being beaten, but, right in that middle zone.
Just enough for you to recognize you are not a part of the default.
Absolutely. And so I needed a different experience. So, yes, I applied to Stanford. I read about it in the Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia. That was a real deal because there was no Google.
Right,
you couldn't Google Stanford.
You actually had to go to a building and pick a book off the shelf.
I had to get a book and read about it. And I said, "Oh, that sounds good. It's in California. It's a long ways away."
Okay.
And so I got on an airplane, TWA, and went and stopped in St. Louis and went to San Francisco, and there I was.
That's what's up. So now that had to be a culture shock for you. I mean, especially San Francisco. So I'm assuming 70s. You're in.
I started in the September of 1970.
Oh, so you were right there when Sly and the Family Stone.
Sly and the Family Stone. Oh, yes. Don't get me started on Sly. Sly
we already had a music conversation a little
Sly
earlier.
was amazing. Yeah. I was there when they recorded Aretha Franklin live at Fillmore West. Now, there are people who will remember that she did. That was one of the baddest albums of all time.
I actually have that album.
Of all time.
I have it on CD.
I was sitting on, it was in a gym. It was on. You had to sit on the floor. There were no chairs.
Okay.
And she just got on that piano and jammed. She did that. I mean, it was like, how could somebody be that talented? Ray Charles was there. He came out and played with her. There was a group called Tower of Power. They still play it.
Yes. Who doesn't know Tower of Power?
Tower of Power.
Yes.
They had several great albums.
The San Francisco funk scene was just like it was so different. It was so cutting edge.
Unbelievable.
I don't know how much acid had to do with that.
I don't know.
I don't know, but it was some funky stuff going on out there. So you're in Stanford. You're in a different world, right? Because at this time, Indiana is still mostly rural. Outside of maybe Gary, Indianapolis, Evansville, Fort Wayne. And you get out to San Francisco, Hippieville in the 70s. How did those experiences shape how you view the world?
Well, first of all, it taught me that there was somewhere else, and that there were people who thought differently, and that there were opportunities to learn new things and get new ideas, and that there were a variety of opinions. And Stanford wasn't. People think of it today as being a mostly liberal place, but it wasn't in those days. And there was a professor, William Shockley, who had a theory that African Americans were genetically inferior. And we needed to adjust society to accommodate that inferiority. And he was at Stanford, a real professor of physics, of all things. And there were other folks that were kind of like that as well. So it wasn't as far to the left as you think of it today. It was very, very different environment. And I learned from being in that environment how to navigate, how to negotiate, how to move within a group of very intellectually bright people, but on different sides of the political spectrum. And so I decided that was my first political experience, by the way. I ran for the Associated Students of Stanford University Senate and won. That was my first election.
Wow.
And I remember.
What was your platform?
Well, I will tell you now that you asked. I will tell you.
I gotta know those high school and college platforms.
In those days, today the Stanford teams are known as the Stanford Cardinal.
Okay.
In those days, it was the Stanford Indians.
Okay.
And I made the motion in the Student Senate that we needed to change the name from Indian. And that motion got a lot of folks were for it. We passed it, took that to the university, and then the university saw where this was going and felt, well, maybe we ought to do something, kind of get ahead of this. They were politically smart too.
Yes.
So they had a referendum about it, and then they had a bunch of different choices, and of course, Stanford students being silly, many of them,
Right.
they chose robber barons, because the governor of Stanford was named
Hilarious.
after a governor
Yeah.
who put together the railroad, the Intercontinental
Mhm,
Railroad,
mhm.
and he exploited some folks, I think, probably in doing that.
Just a few, huh?
So they,
Yeah.
and the university said, no, we're not going to use robber baron. So the president of the university at the time just said, cardinal, not the bird, the color.
Okay.
Because that
okay.
was the color of the uniform,
Okay.
and then it stuck. So it's now the Stanford Cardinal.
That is absolutely unique. Maybe you can go talk to Dan Snyder out in D.C. see if we can do something about that
Well, I
football
think
team out there.
the football team needs a lot of help.
I think a name change
would be
start.
one of the
Because,
things.
I mean, hey. Okay, so when did you? I may have skipped over it, but when did you fall in love with science and medicine?
I didn't at first. When I was going to Shortridge, I didn't really want to be a doctor at that time. I wanted to be, believe it or not, I wanted to be a captain in the United States Marine Corps.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I wanted to go to Vietnam.
Oh.
And I wanted to serve my country.
Okay.
My dad had been a sergeant.
Okay.
And he had been in the Army.
Okay.
So being a son, of course, I got to do something
Yeah.
better. Captain's better than
captain.
sergeant,
Because we're not going to go and be a general or anything. We're just going to stop at captain.
Well, you know why I wanted to be captain? Because if you were like above captain, you had to be at a desk.
Oh, gotcha. You still wanted to be out in the field.
If you were a captain, you could be in the field leading men into battle.
Okay.
In those days, it was just men.
Okay.
But that was my notion of what I should do.
Huh.
And the Marine Corps I thought was better than the Army, but a lot of people would disagree with that, and I certainly would too. Now they're very different branches of the service.
Absolutely.
But I decided that that's what I was going to do. But I knew I couldn't pass the physical. And then one of my friends in high school said, that's not. When you do that, you got to go and kill people.
Yeah.
And killing people, Woody, is not cool. And
no.
in my little 14-year-old brain, I said, well, he's right. I know what I'll do. I'll save them instead. Literally,
Wow.
that I was like, I did this 180. And I started thinking,
Wow.
maybe I'll be a doctor. And my dad wanted to be a doctor, but he didn't have the opportunity. So he had been kind of indoctrinating me behind the scenes all these years. And I ended up, long story short, ended up deciding to be pre-med.
That's what's up.
And I took the classes that I needed to take, and I got out sooner than the 4 years, because in those days you could advance your scholarship, and I had a scholarship. I had to work, and they didn't pay all of it, but
right.
you could advance your scholarship. And I said, well, you mean I could stay in California for the summer, not have to come home to Indianapolis, and get out a year sooner? All I got to do is go to school.
Right.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So you finished school at Stanford. You're applying for med school.
Right.
What was that feeling like when you saw that you were getting into Harvard Med?
Well, I didn't get in at first. I got on the waiting list.
Okay.
And I was going to go to University of California, San Diego.
Okay.
Because I figured, well, San Francisco's nice. San Diego will be better.
Yeah.
But then after I got into Harvard, I made the decision, you can't pass that up. That's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Right.
So got in my 1974 Torino. Candy apple red.
No, not red. Was it shiny? Did you still have a shine on it?
Yeah, well, no, it was kind of beat up, Dana. It wasn't like out of the.
It wasn't pristine like that.
Car, no,
you didn't wet the tires down.
No.
Oh,
When my dad, when we helped me buy it, he said, that I didn't need an FM radio. AM was just fine. So I didn't even. I mean, all it had was an AM radio.
No air conditioning.
No. Well, it had air conditioning. It didn't work half the time. It had no rug. You got they had just the floor. This was like the bare bones, the least expensive one they had on the lot.
And you drove it from San Francisco?
After my freshman year, my uncle and I drove it out, and then when I got to medical school, I drove it back to Boston.
So going from Indianapolis to San Francisco to Boston. Now, we all know that Boston is a whole nother zone, right? That had to be another culture shock for you.
No, it was a very, first of all, let me say one thing to begin with. My medical school experience was unbelievably good.
Okay.
I learned how to take care of people medically speaking.
Okay.
And I had some of the best teachers in the world. I look back on those experiences, and there were many of them with a lot of positivity. But Boston Boston was a very different story. These
Okay.
were some very difficult days
Okay. Yeah.
in Boston.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They had the when they were trying to bust in Boston, they actually had lot of riots and a lot of violence.
Absolutely. There's a very famous picture of a guy with a flag trying to stab an African American guy with the tip of the flag. It was an American flag. You can Google it and find it. But those were the days when I was in Boston. It was there were riots because of, again, school integration. It was a big issue. My first night in Boston. You didn't have Google Maps
Right.
on your phone, right?
You didn't have your GPS.
You didn't have, no, we didn't have.
GPS.
We didn't have. You had to stop and ask
somebody.
people like directions.
Or unfold your map.
Yeah.
And then never could get it folded back. Yeah.
I couldn't find the medical school. I mean, because I'd never been in Boston before. So I stopped in front of a theater, and this guy was in what they used to call these shirts with these athletic shirts. I won't use the name that they call them, but this guy was standing out in front of the theater. And I looked at him and said, "Oh, he looks like a nice guy. Sir, could you please tell me?" And he said, and I quote, "Nigger, you better get the hell out of here before I kill you. It is not your neighborhood." And this guy, who I think was drunk, reached in the back of his jeans and pulled out and before I could see the tip of the pistol, I hit that 4 Torino gas, and I don't think I've ever peeled off as quickly as I did at that time. And this is, I mean, it just stands out, Dana. I mean, this was my very first night in Boston, Massachusetts, and it was one of those experiences you can't make it up. I mean, it's like that happened to me. I mean, and there were many others that along the time.
Sometimes I think our white brothers and sisters don't necessarily understand. You may not have done anything to me as my friend, but the experiences and the traumas that we've experienced just being in this society can contribute to, a lifelong level of post-traumatic stress. And that's the part sometimes I think they miss out on because they want to have the kumbaya moments, and I'm all down for that. But understand that our existence in this society, as Tupac said, I was given this world, I didn't make it. So the lens that I see the world through sometimes is harsh and it's very scary. Here you are, a med student. Most people could never even get into medical school, but it didn't. None of that mattered. None of that mattered about who you were and who you could become. Mattered. It was just what they saw.
He didn't see a Harvard Medical student.
No, he didn't see that. He saw a black man.
He saw a black man who he thought was in the wrong neighborhood and wanted me to get out before, or he would get me out.
Yeah.
And he felt no compunction about pulling out his gun and pointing at me because he obviously didn't feel as if anybody would punish him for doing that.
But this is the part that I like to touch in on. So, we've all had these really, hopefully not everybody, but I know I've had mine and you've had yours of experiences where you're like, dang, why y'all gotta do me like that? But what was that thing inside you? Because now you're a public servant. You're a doctor saving lives, and I know that you run for office, and that means you care about people. What was that thing that made you say, you know what? These are incidents, and I understand that there are people out there, but I'm still going to give to.
Because I've had those incidents are nothing compared to what my ancestors and yours had to deal with.
Yeah. Say it again.
I found, back to my ancestry.com, we found the picture of my great grandmother who lived in the house behind the big house.
Okay.
And my aunts told me when we were young what would happen when the master got drunk at night. And
I just got a chill.
And I think about that all the time. What she had to go through.
Yeah.
And what her husband had to go through, knowing what
the
was
humiliation.
happening.
Yeah.
And that just, so I can't. Nobody is whipping my back, telling me I didn't pick enough cotton.
Right.
Nobody is doing that today to a woman in my family. So why do I complain? I mean, some guy yells at me and pulls a gun out, and I get away. That's nothing compared to what they went through. And so the experiences that I've had they've shaped me, but I've also had many great opportunities. So what I've got to do, and what I'm trying to do my whole life, is turn the advantages that I've had, the pluses into service that allows me to help other people. I mean, I came up in 46218. You know, people don't, but a lot of people don't know that. I grew up across the street from Douglas Park Golf Course, you know, the only inner city golf course. I grew up at 29th and Arsenal. We right next to Martindale. We called it. It wasn't Andrew Brown in those days. It was
Martindale Avenue. Yes, it was.
I mean, that's where I grew up. And I know what growing up in those days was like. And there were a lot of smart kids in 46218, but they didn't get the same opportunities that I got. Well, I believe that there today are a lot of very smart in 46218, 46226, 4624. I mean, all of this.
And I'm gonna go further because I don't want to leave anyone out. I believe that there's some in Rushville. I believe there's some in Shelbyville. I believe there's some in Cass County and some of our rural areas that are not being taken. They don't have those same opportunities.
I know there are. Because we have now been in the campaign to 32 of Indiana's 92 counties.
Okay.
And of course, so we've been to many rural counties. And I've met many rural parents. I've met many of the folks who are the heart of the heartland.
Okay.
And we've talked about the aspirations that they have for their children. And we've talked about the fact that in rural Indiana, you don't have good internet. Right. And how do you, in 2019, 2020, move forward in your educational experience without good internet? It is required. It is no longer this optional thing that people want to believe it is. You've got to have good internet.
Absolutely.
And so that was just one of the rural Indiana challenges to education that we've got to face.
Go ahead.
Not all rural districts are the same. There's some that are out there that are doing really well, but many of them are not.
And I think that's the point when you're running to be governor of a state of over 9 million or 6 million people. We have many different areas of concern. We have some things that are doing really well. We want to keep doing well. Mm-hmm. But I think your experiences of growing up in 46218 and seeing what it is to not have, and then also getting the opportunities and excelling in those, I think you will have an amazing opportunity to have empathy and understand the plight of a vast number of Hoosiers.
I do, and my experiences as a physician have informed that a great deal. I mean, I spent a lot of time, Dana, in emergency medicine and critical care medicine. So I used to take care of the sickest patients, and I've had to talk to parents about some terrible things, and I've had to talk to family members about terrible things. Mm-hmm. And seeing the eyes of these folks that we've had to share bad news with and helping them work their way through it, or it has just you cannot not remember those experiences because I have been with people in the most difficult moments of their lives, and I have seen many patients pass away, even with our best efforts, and it's just made me so determined to stop unnecessary death. It's made me so determined to make sure that all of the wonderful medical resources that are available today get applied to everybody. Why should some Hoosiers get great care and other Hoosiers get terrible care? It's not fair. It's not right.
Especially when every Hoosier is contributing.
Absolutely.
Every Hoosier is contributing one way or another. They're contributing.
Just a great example, Dana. There's a cure for hepatitis C that's available.
Okay.
A new drug, several of them actually now, but this is a disease that if you don't treat it and if you have the aggressive form, causes liver failure, liver cancer, and you can die from that. But now there's a medication that's a cure. The problem
Did y'all know that? I didn't know that.
This medication is $50,000 to $100,000. So what do? Do you say to the people, okay, well, I got $50,000. All right, or my insurance will cover it. I got good insurance. I mean, and the people that are in the situation where they get the diagnosis in time, they have a good physician who understands how to do it, and they have the opportunity to get they do well. They get the disease cured. But then an Indiana Medicaid recipient who doesn't have that kind of access or doesn't have the wherewithal to get it done, that she or he should suffer, or somebody who is in prison who doesn't have. everybody, why do I feel so strongly about this? The science, the research that was done to create this drug was through tax dollars.
Come on.
And everybody pays taxes. So all of our tax dollars went into finding this cure. Now companies took the patents and figured out how to make the drug and so on. But why shouldn't everybody have access to something that saves lives like that? And then you back it up for a second. I mean, that's a very specific problematic disease. You look at the beginning of life. Indiana, Dana, is number 3 in the nation for maternal mortality. Oh, now, number 3 is bad. Not number 50.
Right.
We are the 3rd worst in the nation behind Louisiana and Georgia. We're number 7 for infant mortality. That means your baby dies in the first year of life. Why should Indiana be so doggone bad? And why haven't we made more progress?
I wonder if that supermajority has anything to do with that.
Well, I think funding of the public health infrastructure absolutely has something to do with that.
Absolutely.
And the degree to which the legislature has not funded our public health infrastructure, I think affects it. And we have 33 counties, Dana, 33 that have no maternity services in Indiana today, 2019. So if you're a pregnant woman in one of these 33 counties, you got to go to another county to get
and that could be 100 miles away.
It could
depending
be.
on where you are.
Absolutely. If they have a program, if you don't have the right kind of insurance or whatever.
Right.
So it's just, I mean, there are some really good physicians and really good nurses and really good hospitals and really good public health people in our state who want to do the right thing. But we just haven't connected the dots.
So give us, all right, let's go. Let's connect some dots. Give us some ideas on how we can connect these dots. Well, when we're talking about healthcare, because that is the premier conversation that most Americans are having. How do we have affordable healthcare? But what does it look like for you?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm running, because let's connect the upper level dots first.
Okay.
People who have good education get the best jobs.
Okay. People
who have the best jobs get the best health insurance.
Yes.
People who have the best health insurance get
the
best health care. And people who get the best health care get the best health. I mean, those are the big dots that we have to all understand, accept, and create. So it starts back in K through 12. We have an obligation to make sure that our children get the absolute best education possible so that they then are able to get the post-secondary training. Not everybody needs to go to college. There are many great things you can do without going to college, but you got to do something today more than high school.
You have to.
In the old days,
doing an apprenticeship or learning to do something in the trades. I mean, because I still couldn't use a good plumber and electrician if y'all out there. But anyway,
we have to all understand that. And
right.
In the old days, you could graduate from Maddox or Tech or Gary Roosevelt
North Central,
Evansville, Bosse, or any of those schools, and you could go down to the plant. And the plant, if you were able-bodied.
And you can work for 35
mostly
years.
men, but if then you could get a job. That doesn't happen like that. You got to learn how to run the computer that runs the plant.
Right.
And that requires post-secondary education.
Right.
Or that requires something in addition, right?
Right.
So we've got to make sure that our kids are getting great K through 12 in addition to that, getting great 12 and on, so that they can then qualify for some of the jobs that we have. I had a conversation, Dana, with the executive vice president of General Motors when he was in town for a meeting about 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
And he was talking about the fact that, I think he said that Indiana is the second highest state in terms of jobs for General Motors. Thank goodness they're off strike.
Okay, right.
6,800 jobs in the state of Indiana. And afterwards I said, well, wow, what is it going to take to get to 7,800? I went up and talked to him. I was all excited that GM is a great customer for the state. And he said, Dr. Myers, we have jobs that we can't fill in your state today. And I said, what do you mean? Because we have these positions that we can't get applicants for because they haven't had the necessary training. And it's not that they have to have MBAs or engineering degrees. It's just that they have to have more than what we can do in high school, right? And then the second problem he told me about, Dr. Myers, you got too many folks in your state who can't pass the drug screen.
Oh, so when he says drug screen, what type of drug?
Well, I don't.
Because there's a conversation about marijuana.
Well, we can have that
versus
conversation.
Something else, right? And so, are you saying that they're not passed? You probably don't know that, but I mean, if we decriminalize and maybe do something with marijuana, maybe those drug tests won't become an issue.
Well,
now, if it's meth, cocaine,
we're gonna have our first. We're gonna have our first go back and forth here.
Let's bring it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna bring it. All right.
Bring it.
You know, now
Doctor.
Well, let's talk about. Do you want your surgeon to have had a good joint before he starts operating on your mother's heart? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you.
No, I won't. I don't.
All right. So then.
But if he had one 2 days ago.
Well, let's keep going down the road
Okay.
here. Let's get back to the subject. Do we want the guy who's going to run the complicated machine at General Motors to have had a good joint that morning, or to have had cocaine, or to have had methamphetamine, or to have had opiates, or to have had fentanyl? I think the answer is no. Now, what one does in a recreational setting away from work, that we could talk about that.
Yeah.
But these folks are applying for jobs.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
and they are very complicated jobs, very important jobs. That jobs where safety is an issue.
Okay.
I don't want my Southwest airline pilot either at the bar or in some smoke-filled room before he flies me from Indianapolis to Midway Airport, right? I don't want that.
And that's a fair, and I get that. I'm very fair, but I'm gonna be honest with you. So, you know, real talk people are saying, okay, what I do on the recreational side, not when I'm going to work, not when I'm, you know, on my way to do this surgery, not when I'm about to operate this machine, but it's a Friday night. I've just worked 40 hours, and I just want to, you know,
let me suggest to you here's the progression I think we need to have. First of all, I'm absolutely in favor of decriminalization.
Okay.
All of the folks, many of them, men and women of color.
He's in favor of decriminalization. Let's get that. I want y'all to hear that.
All of the folks that are spending unnecessary time in jail, especially the folks that are low levels, first time. I mean, if you're a major dealer moving keys and from Miami to Bogota,
Right.
All right, but that's different.
That's totally different.
All right, so let's get that. I stipulate that we want that. Number two, I think it's time for the state of Indiana to move, certainly as a first step, into medical marijuana. In other words, I believe very strongly that there's enough evidence that suggests that for people with seizure disorders and a few other things that we know that there is a benefit of THC in those cases. Now, there is already a form of THC and a drug called Marinol. I'm not going to get all technical here. That's available today, and it helps ease the pain of certain kinds of procedures, eases anxiety, decreases nausea, on and on and on.
Excuse me, that's a scientist giving y'all information about the helpful effects of THC. I want y'all to understand that we need scientists and people who understand science as elected officials too. All right, go right ahead.
Well, so that would be step number one. Now,
I had to reiterate that because some people will hold on to something and stay there, and I want to make sure that they follow us and stay with us.
Here's the basic problem. I will break it down. The federal government has not created a profile of THC-containing products such that you can standardize dosage. Why is that important? You can buy one gummy bear in Colorado or some other that has X amount of THC in it, and you can buy another chocolate bar somewhere that has Y amount, and then you have a joint. You don't know what plant it came from. So you don't know what you're getting. When you take a blood pressure pill that says 10 milligrams of whatever you know, because the Food and Drug Administration has said, here's how you standardize that drug. Today's marijuana is not the same as it was when you were in high school or when I was in high school or college. The botanists have figured out how to increase the potency tremendously in the past 10 to 20 years.
Right.
And as a result, it's all over the map.
Okay. And they can like pinpoint moods now. Like if you want, do you want to have extra energy? Get this strain. If you want to go to sleep, get this strain.
That is why that is essential to do the scientific work to help us to understand that.
Okay.
And I think that for the first time, the Food and Drug Administration and Centers for Disease, they're doing that work now, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
Okay.
So Dr. Woodrow Myers says, yes, it's time for the legalization for medical purposes, certain circumstances, the legislature cooperating with the medical community, cooperating with the state police, cooperating very importantly with the judges, all figuring out how to make that work best and learning from the mistakes that have been made in other states. Step number one. Step number two, let the FDA, let the CDC, let the other entities figure out the research so that we can then inform because Dana, you and I know there is not a 16-year-old in Indiana today who, if they want to find a beer,
they're gonna find a beer.
Can't get a beer.
They can get whatever they want.
There is not a 16-year-old.
Prohibition does not work.
We know that. Where there's not a 16-year-old, 17-year-old in Indiana who wants to find X, they can't. I don't want to make it easy for them to find recreational marijuana. We're not ready for that. And the 16-year-old brain, Dana, is not a place.
Okay.
It is not a place for the powerful THC. Well, it's only going to be for people over 21. Oh, come on. That's not.
That's real. That's real talk.
You and I know that's not going to happen.
We already know there are 14-years and 15-years that are getting high now. So it's not like...
Well, do I want to make it easier for their friends?
I got you.
No. The answer is no. And more importantly, most importantly, Mommy's Gummy Bear was like... Now, is there any 8-year-old in Indiana that doesn't know where Mommy hides the chocolate? Mommy hides the Halloween candy? Or Mommy hides the cookies?
Okay.
No. Indiana 8-year-olds are very smart creatures.
But I think that's a step in the right direction. I really do. I really believe, the decriminalizing it and medical marijuana is a step in the right direction. We gonna kind of disagree a little bit on the recreation. And I'm not even it's not even my thing. It's not my thing. But one of the things I feel is if you're an adult and it's something you want to do, and it's not harming anybody else, but that's the decriminalization.
Well, let's talk about harming anybody. May I ask? You're the interviewer, but may I ask you a question?
Sure. Dang, that's Andre. Congressman Carson did that to me too. He turned the tables, wanting to ask me questions.
Well, I just want to ask one.
Okay.
What is the number one cause of preventable death in Indiana today?
The number one cause of preventable death
in Indiana today.
Not smoking?
Yes. But
Whew.
smoking what?
I was going to say tobacco.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bing, 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 you win the prize. Unfortunately, anybody who smokes tobacco loses.
Yeah.
Tobacco is still the leading cause of preventable death in the state.
Okay.
21.8% of Hoosiers are still addicted to the nicotine in tobacco cigarettes.
Yeah.
21.8%.
You're never not addicted. You're never not addicted.
And
Once you smoke, you're always smoking.
It's a crazy, that's why we are dying of heart disease, of cancer, of a whole variety of preventable. If we didn't smoke, you wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
There is no, the research, yes, the research does. I have taken care of so many patients that look up at me and say that, when I was 12 or 13 or 14, I made the decision to start. And they were dying in front of me of cancer or heart disease. If I had just could go back to that day and tell that 14-year-old,
don't do it,
or that just don't do it. And look how much different my life would have turned out. And they're leaving behind family members. They're leaving behind widows and husbands. It's just awful.
It's awful. Okay, I gotta switch gears a little bit because we've hit a lot. We've hit marijuana, we've hit healthcare, and we've hit education. Some other big issues, and we just seamlessly went into those. But let's talk about infrastructure. You mentioned we talked about internet in rural communities. That is a part of our infrastructure.
Absolutely.
People. But Indiana right now has a huge deficit, especially when it comes to our wastewater pipes. We're so far behind. We're millions of dollars behind in
if not billions.
Yes,
if not billions.
Billions behind, and that's just the wastewater side. We haven't even talked about the clean water side.
Well, there's.
I'm sorry.
No,
you're fine. You're fine. People think infrastructure. They only think about roads and bridges, and yes, the next level. Shut down 465, 70, 65, all at the same time in Indianapolis. Those seem to be the only infrastructure needs that this particular administration seems to worry about is roads and bridges. Talk about your idea of what it means to improve Indiana's infrastructure and the things that we need.
Well, the infrastructure can mean means a lot of different things, and roads and bridges are important.
They are important.
They are
just
important.
Not all at the same time.
Well, this summer I characterized a new disease in Indiana. It's called the orange cone syndrome. It's like you're stuck behind these orange cones and you're trying to get from point A to point B and you can't get there and you're blowing your horn, you're looking at your watch.
It was so frustrating. Literally, I was driving to a speaking engagement somewhere on the southeast end of Indiana, and I am like, I have never been a construction planner in my life, but I bet I can do a better job than this.
Well,
it was hideous.
The problem is that they were trying to do, especially this summer, too much over at one point in time. Why is that? because they didn't pass the gasoline tax increase till a couple years ago. Why is that? They looked and said, well, there's an election coming up here and the roads are pretty bad. Maybe we ought to get something
and how
done.
about they continue to cut corporate taxes? Don't get me wrong. The other side always wants to say, well, corporate taxes and we actually generated more revenue. That's because they had all the loopholes so they didn't have to pay what they were supposed to.
Right.
But if you continue to cut a stream of revenue, then from the people that can afford it a little bit more, and then you pass the gas tax on you and I and every other regular working folk, you continue to raise the cost of living, which we needed. We raise the cost of living for people who are not getting wage increases. But that's just another rant.
And we could spend a lot of time on tax policy and what the federal government should do, what the state government do, what the local governments can do. I mean, the number of mayors in Indiana who've been beaten up over potholes because of the city streets.
Especially Marion County, when that formula is such a disadvantage for us in Marion County. And my Hamilton County neighbors who often want to complain about what it is like to come to work in Indianapolis and take all their little tax dollars home. But anyway, talk about infrastructure. I'm sorry. There are just certain things that get my craw, baby.
Obviously, I see you. We should talk about that off camera, right?
Because my thing is doctor, and that's why I'm loving your passion. I'm seeing your passion. You done got me over here crossing my legs and getting all comfortable like you my homeboy from around the corner. There are things that matter to the people of our state. You know, being able to get from point A to point B without losing tires. To be able to turn on their lights without, the bill being sky high, or the ability to get off the grid without being punished. If you want solar technology, without being punished. Right. These are real issues that nobody wants to talk about.
And we have to evolve from an energy economy that's overly dependent on coal. I mean, coal is. People, can't hurt. I mean, coal is dying a natural death.
It's dying, it is.
And the part
technology is making it die.
Well, natural gas is coming in, and it's a much cleaner source, but it is not the cleanest source. Renewable energy, the solar, the wind, and then not let homeowners get credit for the energy that they develop.
SB 309. Thank you, Jim Merritt. Thank you, Brian Bosman.
That's terrible. I mean, why did we do that? I mean,
you know why we did it, Doctor.
I don't believe that they could be that wrong. I mean, why?
Really? You ain't been watching the impeachment hearings? You don't believe they could be that? No, they did it to line their pockets and the pockets of their homeboys. Come on, you. Why
would you treat your fellow Hoosiers that way?
Because they don't care.
I think we want Hoosiers to invest in solar panels on their homes.
Right.
Their wind
you want us to be cleaner in how we
add to the grid. I mean, that's the way that's supposed to work. But anyway, we have got to increase our renewable energy generation. We have got to continue the natural progression away from polluting sources to less polluting sources. That's part of our infrastructure. And very importantly, and you alluded to it earlier, we've got to protect our water supply.
Mm-hmm.
I spent about 14 months on a contract in Phoenix, Arizona, moving back and forth. And when you fly into the Phoenix airport, you're doing that last 10 minutes. What do you see? The answer is brown.
Desert.
When you see when you fly into IND airport, same time of day, what do you see? You see green.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's water in Indiana. There ain't no water. I shouldn't say that. But there's
not a lot.
There's very little, and the water that they have, they're fighting over it.
Right.
Colorado River is being fought over by all the states that are around there.
Too.
And so we have a great opportunity to protect a vital resource in our groundwater supply. And the water that's available to us from the rivers, the Ohio River, et cetera, and the Lake Michigan water.
Right.
We're not doing enough to protect it.
Okay.
And it's multiple issues. It's the plants that were improperly shut down, the leaking tanks from the
junk,
gas.
Yep.
It's the overflow of the animal waste that gets into the system. And it's also the connectors, the infrastructure between the water source and your faucet. Most people don't know that the lead problem in the water in East Chicago is almost as bad as Flint.
Yes, I did.
And so it's like we have all kinds of issues with respect to the environment.
Yeah, and we have another one down in Morgan County has got the same issue. Morgan County is having the same type of lead issues that both Lake County and in Flint, Michigan.
So we've got some huge challenges that are going to require us to think about priorities with respect to upgrading our infrastructure, and
Yeah,
that's vitally.
yeah.
So that's why I want to be governor.
Okay,
I
okay.
want to fix
That's
stuff.
why he's here. He wants to convince you.
I want to
right?
fix stuff.
That's what's up.
As a critical care medicine physician, that's what I spent all of my early life learning how to do, is fixing people. And the more I did that, the more I saw, well, a lot of the stuff that folks are bringing into my emergency room, to my ICU, is stuff that we could have done something about years ago.
Right.
So I started thinking, well, why don't we stop the problem before it gets here?
Right.
And that's when I started thinking about moving backwards in the sense of without waiting until they got in the ICU. But if I could do something to stop the smoking now, then 20 years from now, that kid won't repeat the mistake that his dad or his mom made. They ended them up in my ICU.
Man, that is heavy stuff. It's going to take some time to undo a lot of the damage, and I'm just going to call it that our supermajority and control of the governorship has created over the decades. It is going to take so much.
That's why we got to get started right now. We can't give up, and it is still possible to fix it. I mean, I believe that if we pull together, Indiana, we have this phrase that's at the top of the buildings, Indiana, a state that works. Here's what I'm going to do as governor. I'm going to add a comma. Indiana, a state that works, comma, and a state that cares. There's nothing wrong with being a state that works, but we have to care about our fellow Hoosiers. We got folks at the top of the economy in our state who are doing very well, thank you very much. They're having great lives. Their kids are going to great schools. They're doing this, that, and the other. But then we got a whole lot of folks under that who are not doing well.
Right.
The minimum wage at $7.25 hasn't gone up.
$7.25. If you are a family and you're only making $7.25, how are you surviving?
If you're making $8.25 or $9.25 or even $10.25, it's a challenge. I mean, I've looked at the apartment rents. One of the things we do when we travel around the state. What does a 2-bedroom apartment cost in Rushville? What is a 2-bedroom?
Right.
And it's a lot. It's a little bit more here, less there, but it's still.
And people aren't as lucky as I was. Like, my parents weren't super wealthy, but when they left, I had something that I could put away. Right. And so by the time I was ready to buy my condo, and I was like, okay, I've got this little nest egg I've been sitting on for about 15 years. I can tap into it, put money down, do what I want to, and keep my mortgage payment low. A lot of people don't have that.
Not at all. They have no cushion.
Nothing.
And they're working day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And if something happens, if somebody gets sick, somebody gets in an accident, and then their whole network, can be disrupted.
It's wiped out.
And it's awful that we don't have a better system to care for each other in this state.
Well, what do you say to those folks? And we're gonna run a little long today, and I hope you don't mind. What do you say to those folks that say, "Hey, I made mine. How come you can't get yours? Why can't you just pull yourself up?"
Yeah, well, I've heard that my whole life. If they would just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, then things would be better. Oh, by the way, we're going to discriminate against you. We're going to give you inferior schools. We're going to make sure that you live in an area that doesn't have infrastructure. Oh, come on. That's one of the things it makes me so angry about that I Learn test. All right, there's nothing wrong with trying to assess how well a school district is doing. That's a good idea, but to pay a company to create a test that costs many millions of dollars, and then you can't use it, and then you ask, well, why can't you? Well, you think about all of the issues that are surrounding that test, and there are many. It's not just one. One of the ones that bothers me the most is that there is an assumption that every kid that's able to take the test knows how to use a computer. And, well, of course they know. I mean, every kid today has access. Bull. They
do
not.
Yeah.
And I've talked to folks, and there are some schools in IPS that don't have Wi-Fi. They have old laptops. I think some of them still have Windows 7, or if not.
And you know what? And real talk, Windows 7 ain't that old.
Well,
I teach it. Remember, we had XP for almost 15 years.
Well, the problem is that Windows 7, you can't put some of the software on that you need to put on.
Well, because the platform changed, right? Everything is cloud.
There's some teachers that haven't had the training and how to teach their kids. And then there's essentially, well, the kids were going to have the computers at home. The kids got a computer, and you can give the kid the computer. If the kid takes a computer to some neighborhoods, the computer's not coming back to school.
Right. Or some school districts, they give their kids, those kids, part of their book rental or whatever, is they're getting an iPad.
And no. I am going to interrupt you. Because this is, in Hamilton Heights, and I love Hamilton Heights High School, they give their kids a MacBook.
The
iPad.
most expensive laptop you could
They
get.
get a MacBook, and the MacBook has the textbooks downloaded in it. And I do I want to take that away?
No.
I want them to have that.
But you want
I just want IPS to have it too. Is that
you want
wrong?
Lake County and Muncie and Terre Haute and all the school systems to have it.
I want Gary Roosevelt, Gary Community Schools to have. I want
Yes.
everybody. Why can't we do that?
We
These are
can
our
do
kids.
it. We can do it if we choose to. But what's happening is it's almost like I say it and I mean it and I don't know why anybody else don't say it. It's almost like the other side is on a race to the bottom. You know, it's not that we have to be worse than Mississippi. We have to be worse than Alabama. Because why else would you explain your desire to not take care of the million plus public school students in our state, the future of our state, the future workforce of our state? That is why we have such an amazing brain drain in our state, because those that do have an opportunity are like, I ain't staying in this mess. But we are not properly equipping our young people to be successful. So obviously what you want to do is to be able to keep our wages stagnant so that you can continue to have cheap labor, so some of these major corporations can make crazy amounts of profit off of cheap labor. But how is that helpful to the state as a whole? How is that helpful when a tech company wants to move to Indiana like GM and can't find people to fill the roles that are needed?
Well, think about what's going to happen. If GM continues to have trouble finding folks, where are they going to build their next factory?
It ain't going to be here.
That's correct.
It's not going to be here. But it's almost like they have such a short-term view. Again, SB 309, the de-incentivizing of solar energy, was such a short-sighted bill that was passed into law. And a lot of things that we see come out of our state house are so short-sighted. I want to get my 10 grand, I'm going to get my 20 grand from this particular entity, from this particular lobbyist group. I'm going to let Alec and all these other people write these horrible bills that will benefit the very few.
Right.
And the rest of us are going to suffer. But, Doctor, you and I can sit around and talk about the problems. How do we get our fellow Hoosiers to recognize and internalize the issues that are surrounding us and get them to see teachers? Why is any teacher voting Republican? And I know people want to say I'm partisan. I look at the policies. I look at the policies that are being introduced from one side. I look at the policies looking at the other side. How do we get our fellow Hoosiers, right, to get on board with what you're talking about?
Well, that we do what we're doing right now.
And what's that?
And we are talking about solutions to long-standing problems, and we're getting the energy levels up.
That's what's
because if we don't get the energy levels of good Hoosiers up, if we don't get them to get our fellow Hoosiers to a point where they want something better for their children and their grandchildren, if we don't get them to want something better for the future generations, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting.
Come on. Now, there it is.
That's
it. That's the final word right there. All right, tell people where they can find you. Tell them where they can donate to your campaign. Tell them where they can volunteer on your campaign, because you're going to need those things. And also tell them what events you have coming up so they can come out and meet you and talk to you themselves.
Well, we are planning for 2020 events right now.
All right.
So we're going to take a little bit of a not a whole lot of folks come to events on Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
But we are upgrading our website. We are changing over to a different approach to.
Okay.
But the answer to your question: www.drwoodymyers DrWoodymyers. These MEY people drive me crazy. Dr. Woody DrWoodymyers MYERS.com will take you to our website. You can donate there. You can sign up for volunteering there. We are working hard to get our petitions done quickly around the state of Indiana.
Okay.
We are doing that.
Got to get you on the ballot.
We have now, as I said, been to 32 of our 92 counties. I'm taking advantage of all the opportunities I can to speak to Hoosiers. So we're making friends. We're starting to raise our money now that the municipal elections are over. It's a little dicey there. You come and do a big fundraiser before the mayors are elected.
Right,
the mayors remember that.
Yes.
The mayors say, wait just a minute, Dr. Myers. Why are you here today? Can't you wait another week or two?
Right.
But now that that's over, we're ramping up
throttle.
our fundraising full throttle. Right. We have got some of the best fundraising folks that I could find around the nation that are now here working with me on that.
Excellent.
So we are rocking. And so come over the next 60 to 90 days, we are going to be doing a lot of new and different things. We're going to be holding a friend sessions to get our friends more involved and our colleagues more involved in our campaign. I am taking advantage of all of the great ideas that I'm getting on various policies. As governor, you can't know how to fix everything.
No, you can't.
But what you got to do is you got to know how to find the people who do know how to fix everything.
Exactly.
So people are now coming to me with their ideas and say, Dr. Mercer, have you thought of doing X for Y?
Yeah.
I said, no. What do you know about X and Y? And then people are saying, well, maybe. So there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of challenges, a lot of problems that we're getting people excited and energetic about. And that's what we need to do at this phase of our campaign. Because, Dana, we've got 348 days to go. Now, that's saying, oh, that's a long time.
No, it's not. It'll be here in a minute.
It's going to go. It goes just like that.
Yeah.
And so we are working every single day to communicate our message, to get out there and have conversations with people, to understand their priorities. Because, why does a guy like me want to do this? I mean, all my friends say, you should be retiring, man. Come on, what's wrong with you?
Right.
I did not want to become that angry old man.
Right.
The guy throwing things at the TV.
That was me.
Doing
me.
op-eds and yelling at the young whippersnappers. No. I need to get folks around the table, roll up their sleeves, figure out how we're going to fix this stuff. Because if we don't fix it, it ain't going to get fixed.
That's what's up. And a shout out to your lovely wife who was here hanging out. Hey, Stace. Hey. So, did y'all feel that energy? I had to come down a little bit. My man took me all the way up there. Dr. Woody Myers running for governor of the great state of Indiana right here on Turn Left. See, this is what I bring y'all. This is what I'm trying to bring y'all. When do you ever get to have that kind of interaction and see that level of passion and people who want to serve our communities? He gave you straight up passion tonight. He touched on a lot of issues. You ain't going to agree with everything he said. There is no perfect candidate. Stop the nonsense. But if you want somebody that cares about the lives of Hoosiers and wants to improve lives in 92 counties, here's a good start. Dr. Woody Myers brought the funk. I knew you'd appreciate that one. We brought the funk tonight. Make sure you find him. I know he's on the social media platforms as well. So make sure you find him. If he speaks to who you are as a Hoosier, and this is the person that you want to govern our state, someone that cares about educating our kids at the micro level, someone who cares about healthcare because he's a doctor. He's also a scientist, and he understands the importance of climate change. All the issues that we care about on our side and understanding that we can reach across the aisle because he talked about it, going to Stanford, learning how to hear different sides of the story, learning how to analyze that. Listen, this is a great candidate for governor. This is not a toss-out, throwaway year. I'll be real honest with y'all. I used to say, well, Governor Holcomb ain't Mike Pence, and he hadn't really done anything to get fired. No, the problem is he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything for us as Hoosiers. He has not done anything for communities of color. He hasn't done anything for rural communities. He hasn't done anything for women. Every time I turn around and you're attacking women, trying to, turn us into something we ain't, I guess. But you guys have an opportunity to change that. You can make him a one-term governor by finding a gubernatorial candidate that speaks to you. Here is one. And I'm telling you, he brought the funk tonight. I'm just hyped right now. I don't even know what to do with myself. Indiana's on Dana Black. Turn Left. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know I ran a little long tonight. Next week is Turkey Week. So I'm going to be making some banana puddings and going over my aunt. Oh, yeah, man. Listen.
Not on my diet. I gotta stay on.
I'm going to be dispersing them. So y'all enjoy the holiday. Be grateful. Be thankful for everything you have. You might not have everything you want, but be grateful for everything you have. And if you like what we're doing on Turn Left, please feel free to click on the link and donate because we are, we want to continue to bring you amazing content, amazing candidates, and talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. That's what we do right here on Turn Left. Thank y'all so much for listening. I'll catch y'all in 2 weeks. Peace.